Hey, what's going on? And welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Coach Andres, registered dietitian and nutrition expert. I'm excited about today's conversation and today's video because we get this question all the time. And if you ever wonder okay, what is it that I need to be having prior to working out? Or what do I need to be having after? And sometimes even the question, what do I need to be having in between? Now, this video, it's a little bit short compared to what the amount of content that we can talk about just in this specific topic. However, it'll give you a good sort of guidance as far as how to choose and what to do as far as pre-post workout nutrition. But most importantly, we're gonna go over some important considerations that you need to first establish as you're trying to decide what to eat prior to your workouts. So in today's video, we're gonna be covering pre-post workout nutrition. See you soon. We're gonna be talking about a really common question we get all the time. We recorded a podcast with some of my friends, colleagues, registered dietitians, Desi, Nate, and Antonio, and we talked in depth about this topic, but I figure I'll bring it into my community, but I'm still gonna make sure that I link it up to the comments down below if you want to kind of listen a little bit more about this specific topic. So today I'm gonna break down some important aspects and some important considerations that you need to have before asking or before figuring out exactly what is it that you want to be eating or that you should be eating before your workouts, after your workouts, because there's a few things that you really need to consider. So make sure you take some notes. Let's get right into it. Obviously, I'm a big fan of eating something before training, but there are some instances in which it doesn't always need to be something special. Yeah, I think about it the same way as if we're gonna go on a trip or if you're actually going to go on a race with the car, you need to make sure you put in the right fuel inside of the car so you actually get the best performance out of it. Now, today we're gonna be covering first the considerations that you really need to understand first, because your needs for a pre or post workout nutrition strategy are going to be depending on the answer to some of these questions. So I wanna make sure that today I'm very clear as far as some of the important things that you really need to have. The first thing that I always break down is the fact that you need to identify what is the type of activity that you're going to be doing. Are you going to be doing running, endurance type of training? That's what we call endurance training, and that's something known as aerobic exercise. Or are you going to be doing something like CrossFit, F45, Orange Theory Fitness? Those are going to be functional training and typically are going to also be called high intensity interval training. It's a different type of exercise, but usually shorter in duration, and we'll talk about that in a second. You need to figure out first, what is the type of training? Maybe you're playing basketball, maybe you're doing tennis, maybe you're an athlete. It really depends on the type of activity that you're going to do. Second thing, you need to determine what is the duration of that activity. This is actually one of the most important things, because typically CrossFit, I do CrossFit, the length of an actual workout, sometimes it lasts anywhere between 5 minutes and it can go up to 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes long workouts are gonna be 40 minutes. But most of the workouts never actually go beyond 60. While some runners or endurance athletes, cyclists and things like that, they're actually riding or running for over an hour. So the fuel needs and the requirements for a pre-workout nutrition and post are going to be massively different. For most people that do CrossFit, a specific nutritional strategy pre-workout it's not as important as actually the overall picture of what you eat on a normal daily basis, but there are instances in which you can actually do some stuff that can help you in that moment. So once you figure out the duration of your activity, let's say obviously for the sakes of that you're doing either Orange Theory, a boxing gym, or which most people, I think most of you guys watching here are going to kind of fall on that specific kind of bucket. So it's actually where I'm at. So we're gonna kind of talk and usually use the example of somebody does functional training as part of their typical routines. I don't think we have a lot of endurance athletes here, but if you do and have questions, drop them down or reach out to me and send me a message. The other part too is you need to figure out the intensity of the activity. CrossFit, F45, Orange Theory, they're high intensity interval training. They spike up your heart rate very high, or they jack it up pretty high, and then usually have shorter periods of duration of time which you're resting. Endurance or running or taking off running on a daily basis for maybe a couple miles, it's very steady, so it's not high intensity. There's different needs according to that. Also, you need to figure out the time of the day. Like, what time are you working out? Are you working out at 6 a.m. in the morning, or are you working out at 6 p.m. in the afternoon? Different situations, because what you're going to be maybe eating prior to throughout the entire day may actually be enough for you to be able to be prepared for that workout. While if you're working out at 6 a.m. in the morning, it's a little bit different, because your dinner may actually represent a much bigger kind of like most important meal in what you have actually prior to. And the last thing is you need to figure out what your goal is. Like, if you're in a person in a fat loss kind of stage, I'm going to recommend a nutrition, like a pre-post workout strategy that's going to be a little bit different than somebody that is trying to like build muscle mass and trying to actually bulk up and gain some weight. Complete different situations here. Now, for the sake of this example here, again, I'm going to take somebody that is doing something like CrossFit, functional training, things like that as an example on here. Now, in general, 30 to 60 minutes prior exercise, I do like to recommend something that is fructose rich. Fructose is a type of carbohydrate. Don't associate it with high fructose corn syrup. That's a typical association most people have whenever they hear the word fructose. Fructose, it's most predominantly actually present in fruit. So the cool thing about fructose is, number one, it gets stored in your liver, but at the same time, it doesn't really spike blood sugar as much as sucrose. Sucrose is a different type of carb, and it's usually known as table sugar. Table sugar, typically what happens is like spike up your blood sugar too much, but then typically tends to actually have a massive drop. So I prefer not to kind of create bigger spikes, just constant flux of energy. And that's why fructose-rich type of carbohydrates are going to be ideal. So 30 to 60 minutes prior to, something like, for some people that can tolerate this well, an apple, a banana, even some, like maybe like some fruit, some hydrating fruit like watermelon or pineapple may be a good idea prior to training to actually help you kind of fuel your activity as much. You don't necessarily need as much protein, but again, it depends on the time of the day. So for most people, if they're training in the afternoon, actually having, like, if you had enough protein for breakfast, for lunch, you don't necessarily have a ton of protein prior to, unless there's been a long time in between your lunch and the time that you're working out. But for most people, something that is mostly carb rich is going to be better from the performance standpoint, more so than anything else. Now, if you are going to have something like protein prior to training, I would recommend something like maybe casein rich type of like proteins, like Greek yogurt, or you can be even something like, what else? Like, it could be even something like a protein shake. I don't necessarily say a protein shake is something you need after. Sometimes it can be before. But just for the sake of this example, for most people that are engaging in CrossFit type of training that is less than 60 minutes in duration, I recommend to do a fructose-rich type of, like, you know, carbohydrate prior to. So that's as far as that. The second thing is like, well, what do you need to do after training? Do you need to be having anything specific? The straight answer is it really depends on what time are you going to have the next meal. If you're a person that is training at 5 p.m. in the afternoon and you're not going to have dinner until 9 p.m. or 8 p.m., then most likely you're going to need a combination of proteins and carbohydrates. For me, the best and most effective post-workout nutrition that is effective for athletes and has a ton of research is actually chocolate milk. Not chocolate almond milk, straight up chocolate milk. If you're a person that is against like consuming dairy, or because you're trying to kind of avoid dairy because you have a lactose intolerance or something like that, there are other things that you can do, such as either like plant-based type of proteins, or you can do like a whey-based protein that is isolate or hydrolyzed, which is lactose content is a lot lower, in combination with something like water. But at the same time, you need to make sure you're adding some sort of like carbohydrates at that point. Your body is very effective at using carbs in the moment right after your heart rate was very elevated. So after exercise, this is when your body can process really good amount of carbohydrates. And this is the time where I recommend you to actually add something more simple, something that has more sugar, because a spike in insulin is not necessarily a bad thing. It can actually help not only drive protein into the muscle, but at the same time, it can help you replenish some of the fuel that you lost. Insulin, it's actually anabolic. It helps you rebuild muscle mass and rebuild and recover a lot better. You don't have to be scared of it, but if it actually falls on a really good structured nutrition program, it can certainly help you not only with recovery, but at the same time with toning and making sure you're building muscle mass in the process. Now, if a meal is added within 2 to 3 hours, so let's say, for example, you're training at 6 a.m. in the morning and your breakfast is at 7, right after you're done with training, you don't necessarily need to add like a protein shake or like a post-workout nutrition thing in there, because it may actually make you feel less hungry and you may not have a full, wholesome meal by the time that you get to that point. So ask yourself, okay, how Am I gonna eat a breakfast right now? And if that's the case, if you're gonna use a meal as a replacer for like a post-workout nutrition strategy, I want to make sure this is well balanced. Good amount of protein, at least 20 grams, and it does have a good amount of carbohydrates at that point. Toast and eggs and things like that are going to be ideal. Trying to keep also your fat not too elevated because it's going to delay the digestion, and that's not always ideal. So there's a whole lot that we can kind of go over in this, but I wanted to give you the basics so you have a better understanding of what are some strategies and some things that you can do as far as like obviously incorporating some nutritional like strategies as far as that. Now, there are questions sometimes pop up like, well, what do I do actually in between? Like, do I need to be consuming carbs in between? I'm gonna save that for the next conversation we'll have. Hey yo, hopefully you enjoyed that entire video. Of course, there's a whole lot still that we haven't really covered because it's such a really extensive topic, but if you want to continue to see some of these like short videos that are sweet and concise as far as nutrition, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Again, my name is Andres. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition expert, and I'm here to teach you everything that I know about nutrition so you can optimize the way you live and you perform. See you guys in the next video. Take care. Have a great day.